Hey, it's Kate. Today we're going to be combining 3 exercises together to get some maximal core and glute strengthening benefits along with some spinal stabilization. We're going to be putting together glute bridges, bird dogs, and band-resisted clam shell. So we get a lot of hip and glute work along with that nice spinal stabilization like I was saying before. So we're going to begin with the glute bridges. We're going to start on our backs with our heels lined up with our hips, and making sure that our kneecaps and our toes are facing the same direction. Then we're going to go ahead and lay back down on the floor, tuck the shoulder blades underneath you, and extend your hands out to the side, making kind of an M shape. If you need a little bit more support, a little more stability, you can put your hands out to the side, going directly out from your shoulder in more of a T shape. Then we're going to squeeze the glutes by themselves, get them nice and active, and really try to focus on squeezing and activating the glutes separately from the hamstrings as much as is possible. It's not always super possible, and sometimes it just takes a lot of practice to be able to differentiate squeezing here with squeezing here when we get in the habit of just squeezing whatever we can squeeze. So it takes a little bit of mindfulness. So we're going to squeeze the glutes, and then we're going to press through our heels, lift our hips up until we have a straight line from the knee down through the hip and into the shoulder. We're going to keep our abs nice and tight too. Hold it up here for a 1-1000 and lower back down, letting the back of the pelvis kiss the floor, and then immediately raising back up, holding it up here for a 1-1000 and setting it back down on the floor. A couple of things you want to think about while you're doing your glute bridges is thinking about pushing your knees away from your body as you're raising your hips up off the floor. That's more of the extending idea rather than lifting from the low back. And also you want to think about lifting and lowering both sides of the hip at the same time so that you avoid any sort of like stair-stepping of the hips. We want to have both hips lifting and lowering with the same amount of power and pressure. Good. We're going to go all the way to 15. One thing that you can do to get a little bit more out of your glute bridges is add a little pillow or a child's ball between your knees, and that's going to turn on your adductors, your inner thigh muscles, which also help you activate everything a little more effectively, and also can help you fight the urge to let your knees drift out to the sides while you're doing your glute bridges. Good, so we're going to do 15, and then we are immediately going to change gears and come up onto our hands and knees and start our bird dogs. So we're going to come into that quadruped position with our hands directly underneath our shoulders and our knees directly underneath our hips. Then we're going to think about finding a neutral spine position and bracing the abs, bringing the abs up and tightening them, not so much that we're holding our breath because we want to be able to breathe while we have this tightness, but enough to where we feel supported. Then we're going to think about extending one arm while lengthening the spine and looking ahead of you on the floor a little bit with your gaze. Once you've got that nice and stabilized, maintaining that same squeezing through the abdomen, you're going to press your opposite heel away from you. Now the idea of pressing your heel away from you is that we're beginning to activate the glutes a little bit more, and it's also less tempting to get into a sway back position with the bird dog. We're going to hold it here for 5 seconds, and then we're going to bring both of those limbs in together, set them down in their original place, and without any rocking or shifting side to side, we're going to change the other 2 limbs. So then we're going to extend the other arm, gathering our abs once again, press the other foot behind us. And we think about lengthening rather than raising when we go through these movements. And we're going to think about staying stable. You want to be squeezing the glute on both sides, not just the extended leg, but also the leg that's stabilizing the down leg, we would call it. And bring that back in. We're going to go out again, and we're going to repeat that 5 times for a total of 5-second holds each time, making sure that we're staying tight through the abdomen, lengthen through the spine, even across the back of the hips, and as steady as we can keep it. Now that's always kind of a work in progress. As you're squeezing your glutes, really think about lengthening through that back leg, pressing the heel away from you as much as possible. And you also want to have the imagination that as you're doing your bird dogs, that you could balance a plate of food across the back of your pelvis, and it would stay so level and so still the entire time, it wouldn't spill. If you feel like you would be spilling your food all over the floor, then you need to concentrate a little harder and keep working on that, engaging both sides of your glutes, all of your abs, and working on that stability. So I'm going to do one more time on this side. And these do take a lot of focus. They look simple and they're very quiet. That doesn't mean they're easy. And people of all fitness levels can benefit from doing these. Good. Bring that in. Next, we have clam shells, which one of my clients who has a great sense of humor like to call hey babies. You'll kind of see why in a second. What we're going to do to set up for a clam shell is, because we're using the band, we're first going to put that around both of our legs and secure it about 2 or 3 inches above the knee, right around the quadricep. So we don't want it on the knee joint, we want it nice and up and above. And then we're going to lay on our sides, and we're going to make sure that our hips are kind of stacked on top of each other. We're going to lay down on the floor, allowing the head to rest on the arm that's down. And you can kind of use your fingertips to check and see if you're storing any extra stress and tension up in your upper traps as you do this. We want to be using all of these muscles to work, not trying to help so much with those. Then from here, we're going to make sure that our heels are stacked up on top of each other and they're lined up with your hips. So we should have a shoulder, hip, heel alignment. Sometimes we need to bring the knees a little more forward, and you pull, just make sure you readjust your heels so that they're lined up with your shoulders and your hips again. Then one last little setup thing, we're going to first activate the abdominals so our guts aren't hanging out onto the floor while we're doing this. So you're going to make a little pelvic tilt and tighten up those muscles. And then you're going to bring the top hip forward just a little bit. Then, keeping the feet together the entire time, you're going to try and raise that top leg, pulling the knees apart a little ways from each other until you feel some good muscle engagement through the outside of your hip. And then you're going to slowly control the return part. So you're going to go up and then back down. We want to make sure that we're keeping nice, secure abdominals the whole time, that our neck and upper back are relaxed, and that we don't allow the top hip to rock back and forth. Something that people can kind of be tempted to do, and it's understandable because this guy can burn a little bit after a few reps, is they try to kind of make it easier by adding in a little extra motion. We're going to eliminate that. We're going to get the good work out of our musculature instead of cheating ourselves out of the work and the results. So we're going to end up doing 15 on one side, and then you would set up the same way we did on this side on the other leg, and do another 15 for a total of 15 on each side. So your 3 exercises to work those glute and hip muscles and get a little better spinal stability are glute bridges, bird dogs, and clam shells. You can do the clam shells without band if you don't have one. You just want to focus a little extra hard on that squeezing with the outside hip muscles. So I would aim for doing 15 glute bridges. I would aim for doing 10 bird dogs, and for a 5-second hold on each side, and then another 15 clam shells on each side. That makes 1 round. Shoot for 3 to 4 rounds each day.